So if you could state your name, your birthday.
My name is John Dupuis, Dupuis. My birthday is June 22nd, born in 1921.
And which branch of the military?
I was in the Army Air Force at that time. It was still Army.
Okay. And what rank did you attain?
First lieutenant.
Okay. And what years did you serve from and until?
Mama dear. What years was I in the service?
What years?
1940.
Well, let's see. We were married in 42,
I was from 1940.
and then you enlisted when we went back. You enlisted then.
I enlisted in California.
Yeah, and then we went back, and you got out in 45.
And
Well, you joined the reserve a little while. August 35, when they dropped the last A-bomb in Japan. He wanted out then, but you signed up for what? Some reserve?
reserve, yeah. 5-year reserve. The line to get out was quicker if you go sign up for reserve, so I went over and signed up for reserve.
So really, 45 was August would be when the war was over, but then signed up for reserve. So I don't know how you'd count
So I was
that.
on active duty 3 years. But
Yeah, a good 3 years.
yeah.
So however it
Perfect.
went. I mean,
Okay, great.
thankfully nothing happened during the reserve.
Thank God. All
What do
right.
you mean nothing happened?
During the reserve,
Oh, during reserve.
you didn't have to go to Korea or anywhere. So
Okay. Can you tell me where you grew up?
I grew up in Iowa, a little town of Kyoto. I thought it was great. I didn't know any place else but Kyoto. I thought it was the only place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good growing up. As the depression has hit us, but everybody was in the same boat, you know. I remember I always wanted a bicycle, but I never got it because my mom was widowed and she just had all she could do to get through. There was no welfare or anything like that at that time.
Yeah.
So I came to California and got a job in aircraft at Douglas Aircraft. And Jean came out a couple of years later, and we got married and started our life together. And
Now, when you were growing up in Iowa, who was it? It was you, your brother, and your mother?
yes,
yes,
just the three of them.
yes.
And do you remember being a little kid and
Oh yeah.
the games you used to play,
Yeah.
or what you used to do for fun?
We used to live close to the park, and the kids would kind of gang down there, and we'd play. Oh, they was playing softball, and they didn't have any baseball in Iowa in that little town.
Fishing.
And I loved to go fishing, but I had to walk most of the places to go fishing because my family didn't have a car. And I remember one place I loved to go fishing. It was 6 miles, and we would walk an all-day trip, you know.
6
And
miles
we didn't
there,
take no
6
lunch
miles
or anything. We usually stop and go swimming in the creeks before we come home. And eat green apples, stuff like that. That we just steal away from the farmers. And
You remember
anyway,
what?
it was a fun time, I thought.
Yeah. Do you remember what kind of fish you used to catch?
bullheads.
Bullheads.
Yeah. That's all they had to fish for in those days. Dig a can of worms and go fishing, you know. And I love to do it.
And he still does, except we don't go anymore.
No.
Did you have somebody who was an influence to you growing up? Was there somebody you looked up to? Somebody that
Well, no individual. No, I didn't have a role model to.
What about Uncle Phil?
Well, I had a couple uncles that were in the World War One, and they were mixed up with that aviation, except they were ground crew. They didn't fly, but they.
And his father and grandfather were the pioneers of the telephone company in southeastern Iowa. So he grew up with all the electric, he was good at all electrical stuff. So you don't have to call the electrician when I got him.
Now you mentioned the Depression. Do you remember anything any hardships you guys had to endure or sacrifices you had to make or?
Well, I think we made a lot of sacrifices, but we just didn't know any better. Everybody was in the same boat, you know. The farmers had lost farms, and it was just not a good time. But I remember they were giving away hogs. We didn't have welfare then, but they were giving. There was no market for the hogs or the corn, and the county did buy up some of the pigs, and then they were giving them to the people and taking them home and raising them and butchering them. And my mom raised a pig out in our chicken yard, fed it mostly garbage and stuff like that. Then had a man came there and he butchered it right there. Wow. And they brought the halves. She got the halves of the pigs, and then she worked them up in the basement. She was a very capable woman, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, yes, she was.
Oh,
She loved to cook,
so cute.
bake cakes, and I didn't care nothing about cakes then. And she sold the cakes, a lot of them.
That was then, you see.
Oh yeah.
Not now.
And
But he had quite a good childhood compared to a lot of the other kids in town because of what his father had set him up good before he died. And a lot of the families really had it hard. Of course, in a little town, you plant a garden and you work for every bite you eat, back in those days. So
she had owned a millinery shop, made hats for. You've probably seen pictures of some of the Roaring Twenties and the hats the ladies won. They were mostly all handmade, and
his dad then was the lineman for the telephone company.
yeah, his family owned it.
They ran the switchboard and everything. But
Now, were you and your brother close growing up?
Pretty close, sure you had to be, yeah. Till we reached a certain age, and then I remember him telling Mom once, I didn't want that little shit following me around, because he had his own friends,
when he got about 12 or 13, he didn't want the little shit.
Yeah.
You got a bigger brother?
I have one of each, one older, one younger. I'm stuck right in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
You talk about your school life a little bit. Did you end up graduating high school?
Yeah, I graduated from high school, and I thought it was great. I enjoyed school. I wasn't a good student, but I enjoyed school because I didn't like to study,
Yeah.
and I got through just with average grades.
Played in the band, liked to play in the band, and
Yeah.
even sang solos at the contest.
I liked music.
No, hold on.
That's how I met.
That's for you.
Who is it?
It's for me.
Who is this? Oh, no, thank you. It was commercial.
Yeah.
Green Services.
Um,
They've called here before.
Got solicitors calling all the
Yeah.
time.
so
Okay, so what year did you graduate high school?
1939,
1939.
and
in 40, you went to Los Angeles. to work.
yeah, there was absolutely no jobs in those little towns in the Midwest, and the aircraft industry was just opening up in California, and they would run ads in the papers back there advertising for people to come out there and go to work, in the aircraft industry. So I bid on one of them, and that's what I did. I paid, I forget what I paid to get out here the first time a guy I was driving out, and I gave him $30 or something like that.
Just tag along.
Drove right straight through, yeah. We had to help drive. At that time, you couldn't buy a new car in California. They were driven out here, and they would have one of their men on. I think there was 4 cars. We picked them up in Des Moines. They were brand new cars. They would drive them to California, wide open. You was fast. If you weren't keeping up with him, he'd stop and chew you out, And those days, that wasn't good for our car. But they'd get them out here and turn the speedometers back, which I guess wasn't against the law, and put new tires on them, sold them as brand new cars. But that was one of the first ways I got out here. I think it was just $30, something like that. But I first bid on going to an aircraft school. But that was a sucker deal, to get your job. You didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
They would show you how to drill holes and stuff like that, which is ridiculous, most of us farm kids knew already how to do that kind of thing. So I finally just quit that and went out to Douglas and signed up, and it wasn't but just a week or so they called me, so I went over to Douglas. The worst of it was on the graveyard shift. That's where you usually got to start, and I didn't like that. Worked from midnight till 6 in the morning, and it just didn't seem right to be up all night trying to work.
Yeah, you're supposed to be sleeping at that time.
And I was drilling holes and using rivets. We were working on mainly what I worked on, what they called the DB7. It was what ended up into the A20, but they were crating them up, not even putting them together, and selling them to the French. The French were already in the war. And I often wondered if they could get them things together after they got them over, because they didn't take much to pass inspection. And anyway, I signed up for cadet training, and they put me on inactive duty. And we were both in California. We were married in California by that time.
This was 1940 still?
No,
Or 30.
42
42.
September.
Yeah, Jean came to California, and I finally talked her into coming to California, and we got married,
So you guys met
We were met in
Iowa.
high school in Iowa,
Okay.
but I couldn't give her up. So,
And it wasn't long till
to what?
you knew Uncle Sam was calling you.
Yeah, it seemed like as soon as I got married, then they really got on my tail, like he's trying to get out of it, you know. So I enlisted, and I thought they'd take care of it, except that draft board in West Los Angeles was trying to meet their quota, and they was bound determined not to let me get out of it. I finally did, and because she was pregnant, and I wanted to get her back to Iowa. I didn't want to leave her out here by herself, you know, in that kind of shape.
Yeah.
So we took off in a little old 36 Ford coupe to Iowa. First night we stayed in Kingman, Arizona. I had to sleep in the car, and it was cold.
No room at the inn.
Well, all there was there was just a hotel
Wow.
And
and
it
a
was
bar
full.
mainly. And let's see, we got back in Missouri someplace, and I found out I'd had put alcohol in the radiator to keep it from freezing.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't afford antifreeze, and it was hard to get anyway. Well, the darn thing had a cracked block, and I didn't know it, and it was leaking out the antifreeze and letting it start to freeze. So I just had to. It started freezing when we were down in Missouri before we started heading up into Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to draining it every night to try to get it going, and we got up to Iowa, and well, anyway, shortly thereafter, my brother was killed, and I was glad I had gotten home by that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think it was only about 3 weeks or so.
Yeah,
He was killed in a
mid-air
Night.
collision.
night flight.
Night formation flying. Why they were formation flying at night, I don't
The
know.
hunt of Colorado. So
So by that time, I was out of the mood to go on since he was killed, you know. But I went. I don't think I could have got out of it. I might have. I'm the only surviving son. Sometimes, you know, they would approve of that and let you out. But I didn't want to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to fly. But consequently, I didn't ask for pilot training, and I thought maybe that'd make my family feel a little better if I didn't ask for that. So I didn't, and they sent me to Bombardier Navigation School.
Mm-hmm.
That navigation was pretty darn tough, I'll tell you.
no GPSs. And
Yeah, no PS. There was.
went to Santa Ana first. Cadets at Santa Ana.
Yeah, but I remember when I showed up there, these guys come screaming out of the barracks, "Go back, go back!" And they were marching us down the street in civilian clothes. Go back! That impressed us.
What a welcome.
Yeah. Right.
Well, they were all the same boat, you know,
Yeah.
but we hadn't got military clothes yet. We're still the civilian clothes.
Mm-hmm. So where did you have your basic training?
Santa
Well,
Ana.
Santa Ana.
First they in Santa Ana, and then they sent me to
Kingman.
Kingman, Arizona for aerial gunnery school. And that was terrible because the weather, it was in August, wasn't it? Hotter than hell, and no air conditioning of any kind. The food was terrible. The mess halls were staffed by GIs that had gotten in trouble someplace, so they sent them to Kingman. Yeah.
That was their punishment.
As punishment. And they hated us, so everything was full of grease, and you didn't. Consequently, we were eating at the PX when we would open, get a Coke or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That started to ruin my stomach right there. But anyway, I lived through that, and then they sent me to Albuquerque for Bombardier School, and I got to have Gene come out there. Albuquerque was awfully good to the cadets. They were Just really,
That's where he got his commission.
yeah, I got my,
That's where that picture was taken.
Oh, okay. Can you talk about the training a little bit and sort of the process of what they were teaching you?
well, the bombing was kind of tough because these airplanes were using were Beechcraft RT-11s, and they were not a solid platform, and you needed a solid platform to use the Norden bomb sight, which was a super secret thing then. You know, we thought, and that thing you had to be perfectly stable up, or because you had when you gained out, everything had to be set into the bomb sight. It was altitude, temperature, airspeed especially, and it was an early computer. But really, ironically, getting by my story, when we found out later the Germans already had it. We thought it was super. Even in combat, we took it out of the airplane every night, trying to keep it and locked it up, you know. But the Germans already had it. They were way ahead of us, technology and everything ahead of us, you know.
Yeah.
I think if we hadn't have cut off their fuel supply in World War II, that maybe the outlook might have been different, you know. But
That was his main object in Europe. Out
Yeah.
of Corsica was bombing the Brenner Pass. That was their supply line through.
most of my
Right.
missions are on the Brenner Press. It's the only supply line that the Germans had between Germany and Italy, you know, at that time. And of course, they had a lot of German troops in Italy. They were because they even got into Africa, you know, from Italy before they got them stopped.
That was the rail, with rails, roads down through there.
Well, in the highway, we could bomb that railroad mostly, but it was kind of tough bombing because they would put the bridges were down in these canyons where the rivers were, and we would have the target in sight. Not very long. We'd go drop down in the canyons, and then try to hit the bridges as we crossed over the Brenner Pass area. And it was just a short term of we had it in sight. But in the meantime, they were shooting at us, you know.
Yeah.
So
From the ground or the air or?
well, they were from the ground, sure. That German 88 millimeter gun they had was good for everything. They had it on their tanks, anti-aircraft. And I never did know how they fused those shells to our altitude, you know, so they would break. And
Right.
as soon as you saw them black flowers in the sky, we knew we were in trouble. You know?
And he did a lot of ducking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned to duck.
That's
Didn't
why-
do any good, but I
That's why
ducked.
he's here now.
Well, God bless you.
Yeah.
Show him the picture up there of him up above the desk. Dad getting bombed.
Yeah, that's actually me dropping bombs in that picture up there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Take it down above the desk.
Oh, this one up here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a
The bomb. Oh yeah.
these look like they're hitting the top of the mountains, but actually they were on. They would hit down in the river or something like that. You know. But yeah, that's my airplane. That's
You were
me.
in
And that's
here?
my bomb. Yeah.
Where were you in the?
I was up in the nose here.
Wow.
Yeah, they had the bomb set up in the nose.
And this is your plane as well?
That's it too.
Not supposed to
Wow.
remove.
Yeah, I had one of the other guys in the flight in the formation.
Anything
There were
out of the way, you know.
three airplanes
It's
in a
not
box
right.
of 6. There'd be 3 here and 3 right down below them.
Uh-huh.
Hush up, Yodi. Shoebox. Anything a little different shoebox.
Yeah. So, do you remember where this was taken?
Huh?
Do you remember where the photograph was taken?
Yeah. Oh, this is the Alps, and the Brenner Pass is down in here, and this river here.
Wow.
And this was the same flight. But anyway, you can see my head right there.
You waving to the camera.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my.
Hey,
That's great.
It's a miracle.
just set that down, Bill. It's hard to get hung up.
Just a miracle he's here, right?
I think
Well,
so.
there were a lot of miracles. Some, a
Yeah.
lot of them didn't make it for sure.
No, that's a sad part.
So what year did you got out of basic training, and then after basic training, where did you go from there?
See, basic training, you would went to Albuquerque.
Yeah, I went to Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And basic training was at Kingman, Arizona, which that's what I guess you'd call basic. Went to Albuquerque for bombardier school.
Yeah.
And
How long was bombardier school?
I was
Probably 3 months.
At least 3 months, yeah. And then
And then afterwards,
South
Let's see.
Carolina. Went to South Carolina.
yes, but how long did they give me off between bombardier school
Oh, not very long.
and that's where I got my commission, was in Albuquerque. And then
A
they
couple weeks, maybe 3.
couple of weeks, yeah.
Because you went right down there.
And I went down to
Columbia first.
Columbia and then went to Greenville, North Carolina. There was a bombardier station there, and we did our practice bombing. Got used to B-25, good airplane. There's some of them still flying. In fact, I got her to ride in one once,
Yeah.
which was nice. And then they gave us a new airplane, and we had to get it to Europe. So we really had quite a trip that most people didn't get. I went, jumped over to to Central America, down through South America to Argentina, to Brazil, and then we jumped. That took us about 4 or 5 days, and we jumped from Natal, Brazil, over. We had to hit the Ascension Islands. I don't know if you ever heard. There's one island, rock, sticking out there in the middle Atlantic, that they had bulldozed a runway out of the. If you missed that damn thing, you were in trouble because by that time you were about out of gas anyway. And I stayed there overnight, I think, and then we fueled up and went on into Africa, to West Africa. And I was there a couple of days because the weather was bad. And quite an interesting thing there was a Firestone rubber plant close by, and since we were stalled because of weather a couple of days, a missionary took us through the rubber plantation, you know, with all these rubber trees and stuff. And one of the guys running this young colored gal that had worked in the rubber place, marching through there, and she didn't have any top of anything. Can I take your picture? It was a big thing then. So.
You did.
Huh?
You did.
Yeah, I remember the pictures.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, I
Actually.
remember.
Yes, you did. I got
The war stories finally come out.
Oh, that was a real risky thing then. She was a young gal, just developed nice.
On with your story. And
Not trying to get anybody in trouble.
Is that where you slept and the guy came in?
No, that was over in Brazil.
Okay.
They're close to the Amazon. Or we slept in a barracks. It was on the Amazon River. We'd flown back inland a ways. They had a refueling stop back in there. We stayed overnight there, and the barracks that we slept in was up off of the jungle floor because of the weather conditions. And they had mosquito netting over each bed. But the guy next to me, this guy come in the middle of the night spraying mosquitoes, with a spray gun and pumping it. And I remember not next to me, but one of the guys woke up in the middle of the night, and this guy was over, he's having a bad night. Anyway, maybe this guy was over with him with a mosquito net with the guns, just shooting the mosquitoes, and he let out a blood-curdling scream, and everybody woke up.
They thought he was being attacked.
Well, he was having a bad night anyway, evidently.
Yeah.
So that woke everybody up, but we went back to sleep.
Then from there, where'd you go?
Well, that was on the Amazon. We went on down to Brazil. I was there 3 or 4 days. They gave the airplane a 500-hour check or something like that, to be sure it was all right. And that was where I saw my first B-29, and I thought, my God, that's the biggest airplane I ever saw. And they were flying them to India, I think, to fly the China-Burma route into what is now Vietnam, I suppose, to try to get those airplanes into the Pacific to use them there. That was that airplane was designed and built to bomb Tokyo. So that's what it was designed and built for, really, because those are pretty long flights,
Zach,
But
how much longer is this going to take? Because he's going to take me back to where
This is more important. We'll get you home. Take your time.
Okay.
Go ahead. Then from there to Corsica?
Well, I was at a replacement depot in what's the last stop in
North Africa?
Yeah,
I don't.
before you jumped over into Italy? I can't remember the
I don't know.
Corsica?
No.
Huh?
Corsica? Not Corsica.
No.
Well, anyway, you ended up in Corsica.
Anyway, I was in a replacement depot there, and then they replaced the crews that were taking the convict crews out, and I went from there. It was Tunisia,
Oh, Tunisia.
wasn't it?
I don't know.
And I went up. They flew me up to Africa then, and that's where the B-25 base was. Corsica. But by that time, they had moved over to Corsica because it was close to Italy and also close to southern France. At that time, the Germans still occupied France. And I was hoping I'd get some missions into southern France because that was quite a vacation area there.
The south of France, though. I
Yeah,
hear.
you betcha.
He got some nice vacations. Tell him about those.
Yeah, we did have.
Tell him about your vacations.
Oh, you mean the
Court to
Cairo?
the Blue Grotto on Capri.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of outfit was pretty good about getting us R&R, you know, rest time, after we flew a few missions. So I got to go to Rome and Naples, Capri,
Egypt.
Cairo. Cairo was a fantastic place. And
You met the Pope.
Oh, yeah, I met
Got
the
it.
Pope, Pius.
well, that was in Italy, and then I did get to Jerusalem once. Which that time it wasn't Israel, you know, it was Palestine, and the British were in occupying that, and the prime minister that ended up as the first prime minister of Israel, he was on the wanted list by the British. He was has caused so much trouble to the British, you know.
Begin.
Yeah, Prime Minister Reagan, I forget his name.
Yeah.
But Cairo was a fantastic town. The pyramids were there, and I got about a week there in a very nice hotel. And they come around waking us up in the morning for tea. They didn't give you coffee. And my pilot wanted to go see some belly dancers. So this guy we had a man meet us at the airport. Of how he knew he had some connection someplace. Abdo was his name, and he would take care of anything you wanted done, you know. So he steered us to the belly dancer, which my pilot wanted to see. Just an old fat woman out there. Nothing to it.
Nothing like Africa.
I remember you talked about how impressed you were with Beirut.
About what?
Beirut, didn't you go to spend time, or
No,
I thought you spent some time. Really
not
liked
Beirut. It was a.
Maybe it wasn't Beirut. I'm thinking somewhere else.
Beirut at that time was the jewel of that Mediterranean
Yeah,
area.
I thought you'd been there.
No, right by it, Phil didn't get stopped there.
Now the crew that you flew with, how many men were on board?
Co-pilot, he got wounded pretty bad and sent him home. He didn't get to fly all his missions.
John was the medic. He had to take care of him.
Yeah, I
On the
got
plane. Get him
I got to take care of the morphine and stuff because you had to keep it locked up. You know?
We had to.
So I was shooting him full of morphine before we got back from that mission. But
Was that the first mission that you flew?
No.
no, I don't. Art must have got in 20, 25 missions, something like that before he.
He was lunch.
Do you remember your first bombing mission?
Yeah, it was a milk run. I liked it.
Well, say that again.
Yeah, we flew across Italy, and I remember we went up by along the
Pole.
God, it's getting off the beast, so forgetful. The Adriatic side, and as we went by, what's the town with all the canals and stuff?
Venice.
Huh?
Venice.
Venice. They shot at us. You know, it was still German occupied then. But we would go up to the fly up the Adriatic towards the Alps and then jump over to bomb the German targets along the Alps. But
Do you remember what the targets were?
I don't know.
No. Do
I
you remember?
going by some hospitals and they'd put great big crosses on the top so we'd leave them alone. You know,
Yeah, no,
because we couldn't tell for sure what was bombing it.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the first times I ever saw a German fighter, that's where it was. He jumped out of Austria down over the Alps and come up behind us, of course. And I remember the top gunner that machine gun started taking off. That's the first time I knew we were being attacked. And then he went down across our nose. I saw him then. I think he got one B-25 out of our box of 6 that was in that flight. But I never did know what happened to the crew.
How many men were on board? Or how many men were in the crew?
6.
Six.
Pilot.
2 pilots, bombardier, navigator, C.
You were
2
the
gunners and ways and a tail gunner, yeah. 6.
two gunners and a tail gunner.
2 waist gunners, yeah, on each side, and a tail gunner, and then pilot and co-pilot. That'd be 6 me. Yeah.
And you know, I didn't know you had that many gunners on there.
Yeah, there was 2. Let's see, no, I believe there were just 2 in the back. There was one guy took care of both sides, but they had a tail gunner. His name was Ralph, and he really bugged me because he would call me on the internet all the time. Is there any flak up there, John? Because he could, poor guy kind of felt sorry for him. He's sitting, looking out behind, you know.
Yeah.
I'd tell him, get off the damn radio, you know, because it could have been kind of busy at that time.
He was lonely back there.
Huh?
He was lonely back there in the tank.
Yeah. Looking backwards, you know.
Yeah.
That was a terrible position you had, I thought.
Now, your first mission. Do you remember how you felt leading up to it? Were you nervous?
Well,
Were
I
you unsure?
anticipated it, of course.
You knew it was coming.
Sure I did, yeah. I'd already talked to a few people out of there that had been flying, you know, and we were first in tents.
Yeah.
And then that little town we were in was Gisanachi. It's still there. The Germans had bombed it. They had occupied Corsica before we did. The Germans had bombed it, and it's in fact, when they left, they left a lot of landmines in, and this friend of mine here in Hemet, he was a B-25 pilot. I didn't know at the time, but he about had a leg blew up. He was in a weapons carrier going to the flight line. They drove over a landmine in the road, and that ended his pilot career.
How many missions?
He got 14 was all I got in.
How many missions did you have before you got shot?
Oh gosh, I didn't know, Mom, probably 35 or so before I got wounded in my leg.
Got a Purple Heart.
The shrapnel went right over the top of my leg and got me there. I got a piece of shrapnel back there. Phil probably showed you in that.
Oh, in the shadow box.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, I just was on a bombing mission, and the Germans were shooting at us, and they hit us a few times, you know. So that shrapnel is terrible stuff. It's the shell is pretty good size, probably this size and that long, and it explodes after it gets up to altitude and just goes everywhere. You know, really, it's a vicious weapon, but then a lot of things in war are vicious. You know, it's very damaging to human flesh.
So did you have to take care of you were the medic on board?
Yeah, well, I wasn't hurt that bad, but I just put a big bandage on my leg, and then when we got back, I went right to the flight surgeon, and he fixed me up. He wanted me to maybe go to the hospital overnight, but I didn't want to go, so I didn't. In a week or so, I was back to flying again, because I didn't want to leave my crew. I wanted to stay with my crew.
Yeah. And do you remember where that happened, where you were flying over when?
It was in the Brenner Pass area when we were bombing. That's where we got most of our trouble, was because it was so heavily defended. You
Was anybody else hit, or were you the only one?
Yeah, the pilot, co-pilot both got Purple Hearts. I don't, whether it's at the same time, I don't know whether they did or not.
That wasn't at the same time that Hash got his, though.
No. Well, Gabe got hit at the same time as Harris did on the legs. They both got hit in the legs with the shrapnel going across there,
But they
Hash,
all,
the co-pilot, he was hurt so bad they'd send him back to States. He went. They had a landing strip at a base hospital, so if you had wounded, you could stop and leave him off.
Yeah.
Which we did with him. We stopped and left him off at the hospital, and then we went on back to our base. And never saw him again till after the war. I finally got hooked up with him, and I found out they'd sent him back to the States on a hospital ship.
Now, could you hear when you're flying? Could you hear the anti-aircraft shells, or was
You
it?
can't hear them, but you can smell the gunpowder from the explosions, and you can see them black flowers. That really, you know you're in trouble. And the aircraft had no insulation in the ground, and they were metal, so it just kind of like you were in a tin can or something, and somebody throwing BBs at or rocks at her.
So you could hear all the
Yeah.
the ping.
So,
Now, how many missions in total did you
I
fly?
had to fly 70 before they kept raising it all the time because they didn't want you to go home. They wanted to finish the war. It was 50 when I first went over there, and I thought, I understand 6 months, maybe a year before that, it was just 25, and that was even better, But by that time, the troops had moved up quite a ways, and the missions were shorter, so that helped a lot. Mine missions would average out maybe 4.5 hours or so, something like
Round
that.
trip.
Yeah.
you
The
flew,
B-25 wasn't capable of many more hours than that, especially with the load we had. We carried 8 500-pounder bombs,
You want to call dial or
4 in each side of the racks.
They don't take,
And
something.
it was the bombardier's
in this
job
short
to
notice.
to fuse
Yeah, give
those
them at least
bombs
a day.
before we loaded them. And so the bombs would be laying there, so when they put them in the racks, the crews would put them in the racks, and then I would fuse them and put the fins on them. And then put the arming wires on them. There was an arming wire that fastened to the rack and through the fuse of the bomb. And as the bomb dropped out of the racks, well, then that wire would arm the fuses. So we had to be damn sure them wires were in the bombs.
he learned it well, didn't
Yeah.
he? You learned it well, it
Yes,
sounds
you bet.
like.
You didn't go
You
to
wanna
sleep.
take me? You can take his car.
I'm going to listen to this.
We got what they call mission whiskey every mission. You go over to the flight surgeon and he'd give you 2 to 4 ounces. I forget. I didn't drink it all, so I was putting mine in a bottle, and then I'd sell it to some of them alcoholics over there. They'd give you $30-40 for that, which was a lot of money then. But it was often what it would taste like because it was all kinds of different breeds of whiskey in it.
All mixed together.
Yeah. But they didn't care it had
They
alcohol
were
in it.
aging it.
It did the job, huh?
He flew his last mission, the 70th, on Easter Sunday,
Easter Sunday.
1945.
Yeah. And
Easter
thank God it was a milk run. The war had pretty well slowed down by then.
So on on your missions, can you kind of describe as you're approaching your target, what's the protocol, what's the communication with the pilots and with you, and how does that whole process
Well, the
happen?
pilot would hold the airspeed and the altitude. You wanted to be sure of that because that airplane had to be. That was the problem. He couldn't be doing evasive action or anything like that, or you couldn't begin to hit anything. So you just had to let him shoot at you when he's on the bomb run, and that's what they would do. We bombed at an airspeed of 200 miles an hour and an altitude around 10,000 feet from the target, which was our normal height for what we were doing. We didn't do any area bombing or anything like that. It was strictly pinpoint bombing. Remember I saw some fighter planes when we were coming back. They saw a guy, which was ridiculous. They saw this guy plowing in the field with a horse or something. They went down and strafed him, you know. And we loved to, when we'd come back to Italy to go to Corsica, we would drop down, and some of them fishermen would be out in their sailboat. We'd drop down, you know, and the prop bush would just jump them all the way. I thought that was great fun, you know.
You gotta have some fun too. Right?
Yeah. They'd be kicking their head.
They'd be gone before they'd know it. Huh?
Yeah, they'd see us coming. They know what we're doing.
So as a bombardier, I understand that at a certain point you would actually control the plane.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. The bomb sight flew the airplane. It was hooked into the autopilot.
And how long would that process take, generally?
Well, they usually wasn't too long because of the fact that the opposition had people shooting at you. So the bomb runs would maybe run maybe 4 or 5 minutes, something like that. I don't think much longer than that. That's quite a bit of time in the air, you know. At 200 miles an hour, you can travel quite a ways.
Yeah.
But then we got to using these white frosters bombs to try to bomb the gun emplacements.
Mm-hmm.
And that was terrible stuff. It hit your flesh, and if you put water on it, they would explode, you know, and just cover everything and burn right through human flesh. It was awful stuff. I think it finally outlawed it as a war.
Yeah.
As a war weapon this day and age. I
Inhumane.
don't think they let them use it.
Now, when you weren't flying your missions, where were you stationed? And
I was out on Corsica
Yeah.
with nothing to do. That was the trouble. It was. We didn't get any. USOs like you heard about Bob Hope. We didn't get nothing like that. I remember seeing one USO show out there, and it was if you had to pay for it, you wouldn't have paid a nickel for it. They didn't send Bob Hope out there.
Yeah.
He stayed in Rome and places like that, you know.
so, what would you guys do to pass the time? Just
Go with the Red Cross Club and drink coffee.
yeah.
We'd give them 5 French for an old crappy cookie that I think was made in Australia or someplace and shipped over there. Didn't charge us anything for the coffee, which was not very good, and it was in tin cups, you know. But it was something to do. But they had some reading material over there. We'd look at that over and over, the same thing over and over.
Now, did you write back home?
Oh,
Were you
yes.
guys in communication?
He wrote a lot. You couldn't tell me a lot of stuff they were doing.
Oh, everything was.
We corresponded a lot because by the time he went over there, we had our older daughter.
Yeah.
The trouble, and they had the officers,
Mom, where's that piece of
it was
wire?
insulting
That piece of wire.
to some of the enlisted men. They had to give the mail to us, and then we would censor their letters. Now that was a terrible thing to do. Cut out anything we thought was giving away war secrets, you know.
There was no email or text messaging back then.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what they had to give their mail to us, and every now and you have to. They couldn't seal their letters. And
Yeah.
anything that we thought left any war secrets out, any locations, anything like that, we had to cut it out of the letter.
Now, after 70 missions, I imagine you and your crew, you guys were probably were you pretty close? And
Well, we had the flight surgeon would certify that we had combat fatigue, and that's what sent us home.
okay.
But that was, as I say, when I first went over, there were 50 missions,
Yeah.
and I was hoping that's all I was going to have to. But
John's
I don't know whether I lucked or what, but I had to fly the full 70 before they sent me home.
Yeah.
Because the war was just ending about the time I got done. And in fact,
Yeah. A few months.
when
later.
I got into Boston, I think we were the first troop ship in there that after the European war had signed their.
Are your moms in here?
Yeah,
Does it
here's
show your moms?
yeah, there's some bombs laying over here.
You got your name on there.
Yeah. After you really got so many missions in, they'd let you put your name on the airplane.
Did you guys name the airplane?
Yeah, pilot named it Sitting Pretty.
Sitting Pretty.
He was an Armenian. They first named it some Armenian name. I forget they had. When everybody kidded him so much, what the hell does that mean, Gabe? You know, so they changed it to Sitting Pretty.
Now, did you guys fly the same aircraft for?
Pretty much so, yeah. After we got a few missions in, we got the same airplane. But other people flew it too. That airplanes kept busy, you know.
Yeah, okay.
But
You were in another plane one day when you saw it shot down.
yeah, this airplane got shot down in later part of the war, so I didn't.
But he even lucked out. He went with another crew.
Yeah, I didn't get.
So you see, he had a guardian angel.
In other words, you didn't get to fly in the same airplane every day.
You flew what they told you to fly.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's a 50
kind
caliber machine gun there, which they took that out. There was no use to have that in there. It was extra weight, and we
Extra
just
weight.
didn't need it, you know. We didn't strafe anything.
So you were sitting in right about
Yeah.
here? Or?
I think my head is right here. I had a little jump seat that I sat on, and then the bomb sight, of course, was up in here, up in the nose part, where the glass was. So
Quite the view from up there, huh?
you bet, good view. I enjoyed that. And still, I started seeing them black flowers in the
Yeah.
sky, and then I knew I was in trouble.
Better than sitting in the tail, huh?
Yeah. And you had to hang in there in the bomb run, or you know, you didn't hit nothing. You had to have a stable platform to
Yeah.
drop from. Or
Now, were there any instances where you had to bail on a mission, or were you guys able to complete all the missions that you set out for?
they what?
Did you guys ever encounter a situation where you had to abort a mission, where you weren't able to complete it, or
No.
aboard a mission.
I don't think we did. I don't know. They had what they call a spare fly with the squadron to a certain point. So if somebody had to fall out, they could fill in, and you'd have a complete bombing formation of 6 airplanes. You know, But he would follow, the spare mission would follow you to a certain point and then fall back.
Yeah.
When he saw you were going to complete the run. I had one mission we decided to come up in the higher up to support the Russians over on the Danube River, I guess it is. And we had to fly clear across Italy, across the Adriatic, and across Yugoslavia to get to where we were supposed to have a coordinated mission with the helping Russian troops. But when we got over there, the damn Russians got to shooting at us, so we had to leave, you know. That's how good the communications were with each other.
Intelligence.
Huh?
The intelligence got
Yeah.
getting their
Well,
act
and then
together.
the
But then you came home on the boat.
Yeah, I came home on the boat with I thought I was going to get a good stateroom, but come to find out the boat was bringing a bunch of casual homes, and they got the good accommodations, which they should have had, you know. So we were kind of down about 4 decks, and the guys were seasick, and they were throwing up in the hallway, you know, and it was, and we had to get our meals down there too, and they had putting canvas bunks in those staterooms, and they had fastened to pipes, you know, and they had about 12 of us in each stateroom. That's where I met Jim Miller. I was on that. I heard he evidently heard somebody mention Iowa, so here he come popping in the door. But that was 4 or 5 days, I guess, that trip through the Straits of Gibraltar. That was quite interesting because you could see Africa on one side and the Straits, the Rock of Gibraltar there on the other side. And the porpoises would follow you all the way through there, just jumping up and down, you know. I never did know what attracted the ships attracted the porpoises.
Garbage,
you know.
maybe.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I suppose maybe they dump garbage in there.
And then he got home and we had a nice R&R down in Florida.
Yes, we did.
On the Millionaire Road.
This was after the war had ended.
Yeah.
But that wasn't
No,
as long as it was supposed to be, you know.
that was getting ready to go to Japan.
Yeah, but
From there,
when we got into Boston, we were promised a steak dinner our first night in. So when we went to the mess hall, here was these big smiling German POWs, fat. You know, they'd been eating steak every night. We didn't care too much about that. Quite a lot of comments about that.
Did you have any interactions with any of the POWs, or just a visual?
No, there was not where I was. I didn't notice anybody. They did bring it up, the fact that they had a lot better war after they were taken prisoners than when we had.
What were you guys eating?
We got steak. Well, you mean overseas?
Yeah, overseas.
The officers had officers' mess, but we had to pay for it. You know, we put in a fund and had our own mess, and the cooks really done a fantastic job with what they had to do with, you know. But we worked out a deal with the Navy. We'd fly some of their people to Cairo, and we'd go down to the Navy base and pick up some of the foods they had a surplus with refrigerated stuff. We didn't have no refrigeration. And we would get butter and meat products, stuff like that, which we never had before. And then in turn, we'd fly some of their officers to Cairo when we went, pick up a couple of them. And I remember the one that went with us, when I went to Cairo, he bought so damn many shoes and stuff, we couldn't hardly get him in the airplane. I made him a whole box full, but he was going to take them to Italy and sell them.
They laundered money.
Yeah, and then we had a habit of when somebody would get the trip to Iowa, everybody would loan you a bunch of money. And we would take our American invasion money, they called it. But it was good American bills. We would go to Cairo, we would cash that into lira, Italian lira, which wasn't worth a shit, hardly. Take it to Cairo and give it to this money changer, and he would, see, when we got that changed to British pounds some way, and we would bring that back to our finance office and trade it back into the American money. Anyway, we made a lot of money on the deal. But each crew that went, it would be the habit to loan them as much money as you could so they could do it. You know, of course it was illegal, kind of what goes on now. You know, but nobody said much about it, doing it. But then that's how I was able to send you money.
Now, were there any other memorable experiences that you had while you were overseas that we may not have touched on, or?
Well, you know, quite a few of them are. You know, it's just you get so much attachment with your friends. You know, you have to live with them and get wounded with them, and some of them died, of course. But it's just an experience you could do without. Yet it was a good part of your life. You know, you never forget it. I kept track of my crew, the officers, and the pilot and the co-pilot, and they're all dead now. They were in Southern California.
Had some nice 57th bomb wing reunions.
Yeah, we had quite
See a
few.
lot of them then, but no more.
Some of them are pretty nice. Some
All
of them,
gone.
but everybody's gone now except me. I'm 95, going on 96, so I'm lucked out.
God bless you. And were you awarded any medals or?
What
Oh
did I
gosh,
get?
yes. He's loaded.
I think I got one of them air medals that last time. It's got a number on it. What is it, 9 or 9 air medals or something like that? Purple Heart, of course. Didn't get no clusters in it. Didn't want any. And European Theater operations. I've got ribbons for that.
I don't know if they're not all on here, but this gives you an idea.
I can't get that on anymore
No,
for some
No.
reason. Yeah, this is.
it must have shrunk.
Yeah, it's the airmail, and it's silver cluster and 2 bronze clusters on
Now, what do those represent?
it. Extra airmails. Instead of giving you more mail, you got to put a cluster on.
Ah, okay.
This is the Purple Heart.
Mm-hmm.
This is the European Theater of Operations, and it's got a silver star and a bronze star on.
Mm-hmm.
The silver star is worth 5 of the others.
5 bronze.
Yeah,
First two.
but that's. I think the old.
What are
It's
these?
a piece of shrapnel.
That's the black-headed leg.
That didn't, I don't
Oh,
think
that
that.
one.
Now, where did that come from?
It
It
was
came
in the
from a
plane.
German 88 millimeter shell.
That's come out of the anti-aircraft.
If that had hit me in the, that didn't hit me or I wouldn't be here. The one that hit me, I don't know where it is, but the crew chief dug that out of the nose of the airplane, gave it to me. It went through the airplane.
He made this case. His favorite hobby is woodworking.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
He's got a
solid walnut.
workshop out in back.
Oh, he's got his name on there.
Yeah.
Skunk River Walnut.
There's a Purple Heart.
Now, the number 9 on here, what does that symbolize?
What's that?
The number 9?
That was
Is
the
it an
number
air
of air
medal?
medals I got. Number air medals I got. So they give you another medal. Well, they gave you another medal, but what they did was gave you a cluster to put on your original.
Uh-huh. And then this one is, what is this one for?
That's one of the European theater albums. I'm not really sure what
Yeah.
this is a European, and I don't know what these other two are for really. Right now, I don't know.
And
12th Air Force. I was in the 12th Air Force.
Air Force. And you got your dog tag down there.
That's my old dog tag.
And this emblem,
That went on the officer's cap.
the cap. Do you still have your cap or no?
I had my cap, and I don't know what happened to it. It got away from that cap in our closet. Is not mine.
You still have his cap, Mom?
Huh?
You still have his cap?
That's not mine, Phil. I don't know how that came about. Somebody got my cap, and that was a substitute for it.
And you wear it?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to wear it on the B1.
Yeah. Just for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was his Eisenhower jacket, they called him.
That's nice.
Well, it was just a field jacket, and they had it tailored down. Eisenhower's one that started that, making that jacket without the tails
The
on
short
it.
waist.
So they called them Eisenhower jackets.
You should have this cap.
Yeah.
Really, at that time, it wasn't authorized for everybody, but Eisenhower.
Okay.
He had his girlfriend with him all the time, too.
I used to wear it on the B1.
Now, I mean, back home.
I don't think his wife cared, but
Yeah.
she probably had friends, too.
Now, back home, you had a wife, you had a kid. Was there a sense of urgency to get back home to them? And
That's what was really uppermost in my mind. I'd say a little prayer on every mission if I didn't get home to take care of my wife and my baby. Carla was
Yes, she has.
was our oldest.
Before.
We lost her to breast cancer. Pretty tough.
sorry to hear that.
And then Kathy came along, and then Phil came along. Everybody was picking on me that it was all my fault.
Yeah.
It takes two to tango.
It does.
They kept picking on me though. Her and my dad, I both.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Now, did you have any mementos or anything that you'd bring with you on the missions, like any photos or any good luck charms or anything of that nature?
not too much. No, I had a camera that I took with me, but I didn't get a chance. The only film I could get was some old aircraft film from our photo department, and it wasn't worth a damn. And it was 35 millimeter, and I had an old 35 millimeter camera that wasn't worth a damn either. So I didn't get to take many pictures. Most of the time, I was too busy up in the nose when we did get on the targets to take any pictures in there. Otherwise, it was kind of nothing to take of. Pictures of, except we had landfall a lot of time at the Leaning Tower of Pisa, so I got to see a lot of that.
Okay.
But I didn't take any pictures of it.
Was it leaning back then?
It
or
was
it
leaning
just-
then.
Yeah.
It's been leaning a long time, and they've thought about straightening it up, but I understand that would
Nobody.
ruin it really and damage it, and it's
Not
a
Italy.
historical.
Yeah.
It's Greek.
Greek.
thing, so they had to leave it alone. You know?
I'm sure
They'd
that
have to change the name of it too.
Yeah, that's right. Wouldn't attract many
When did
tourists.
they send it?
was in 20
see
years
here.
ago.
What does it say?
Now, did you guys have any rituals, any
Just
pre-flight
something
rituals that you guys would go through? Would you guys
Yeah.
you just got the mission
doings had
and
to
leave
do
when you're
with-
told? And,
We'd get our briefing
Yeah.
before every mission.
uh-huh.
All the crews would be lined up in this briefing room, and we'd get our briefing, what the target was, what we were supposed to be doing, and
This is something.
good luck, get the hell out of there and get it done.
Yeah.
This is something the Greek government sent.
Yeah,
What is this?
I don't know what it is. I suppose it's just,
You read Greek?
All I can read is First Lieutenant John Dupuis.
I don't know why they sent me that, but
Well, because you helped save their country. That's why.
2002. They didn't send a translation.
I never got to see Greece. So.
That's great. That, and
It's
so
all,
many years later,
It's all Greek. Huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah.
So you said your last mission was Easter
Easter
Sunday, which is
1945.
only a few months before the end of the war in Europe.
Yeah, because then they were getting him ready to go to the Pacific.
Pacific.
Yeah.
Did you guys have was there a sense that the war was coming to an end? Do you remember that time? How
Yes, I do. I was in Midland, Texas, when they dropped the A-bomb.
Yeah.
And they were getting us, since we had experience, and they were trying to get the war started, getting me ready to go to the Pacific, and I didn't want to go very bad. I'd already served my time, and I
I'd say
didn't want to
so,
go.
yeah.
So the A-bomb was, did we end the war? And I was
Did show him.
thankful for that part, but then it killed an awful lot of people, you know.
Did you show him the picture, Phil?
Hmm?
The guy that dropped.
No, I was
Oh.
just thinking about it. I don't know where it is.
Did
That
you
was-
always show him? Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
got it.
Do you remember when you came home from Europe?
Yeah.
Do you remember the day or the month?
Well, as I
the date?
told you, it was, we hit Boston the day the European War ended.
Okay, so it was May.
Yeah. And I always remember they loaded us on that troop train to take us to Camp Miles Standish, which was, and the Red Cross gals came on board the train with 5-gallon milk cans, passing out cups of milk, and it was so good we hadn't had any milk, anything but powdered milk. I don't know whether you've ever tried to drink powdered milk, but it's pretty bad. I mean, we thought anyway. But it's nutritious.
Sure.
So we got it.
How did you feel coming back home?
Really anticipating and really
Looking forward.
ready for it. Yeah. That's the guy that dropped the
They bombed.
bomb on Hiroshima, a bombardier.
Wow.
We had a bombardier reunion in Albuquerque, and he was there.
And I met him.
It-
It makes you wonder about him. He knew what he did, how many people he killed. What did he have going on in his head? You know?
Yeah.
I
He was
understand
very-
he's dead
He
now.
was
but
very, very quiet.
What was his name? Is that Tibbet?
what was his name?
Jim Fergamo or
What was
something
he?
like
Should have
that.
wrote it on the back of the picture, but we didn't. Did we?
On the back.
Unless it's
somewhere.
on the picture, by the picture, you got that backing there, you can't tell. Very nice man.
Yeah, very quiet.
Yeah.
But it was war. When are we going to get done with the wars?
The war to end all wars. What do these wars accomplish? You know, I'm anti-war now. You know.
Farabee, Thomas Farabee.
Therapy.
Yeah, that's it. Therapy.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing good comes from it. That's
No,
for
it
sure.
doesn't.
No, it sure doesn't.
You know, what makes you wonder is war makes an awful lot of people for a lot of corporations and stuff. So
Yeah. the ammunitions maker.
Well, not just ammunition, but
Oh, well.
makes you wonder if there's something going on with the bulk of people don't know about.
I'm sure. That's why they enlist kids.
Yeah, that's right.
Not their own kids.
I know,
either.
of course not. Um, so you said you were in Texas when the Avon was dropped.
Yes.
Yeah, I was
and
in Midland, Texas.
So you never made it to the Pacific then.
No, thank God for that. Yeah, I didn't want to go to the Pacific.
And then when was it that you entered the reserves?
Like what?
You entered the reserves. You said after
Yeah, I
active duty.
signed up to 5 years in the reserves because that line was shorter to get me out at Midland. And I guess we were in Iowa, and we started the farming operation, and Kathy was in the books.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go anymore, so I wrote the reserve and told them I would like a discharge, and I didn't get it until later. They didn't give me a discharge, didn't they?
And when were you reunited with your wife and family?
In St. Louis, Missouri.
after he got from Europe, I met
Yeah.
him.
I'd
In
already
St.
called her
Louis.
from Boston,
Met him in St. Louis.
and Jefferson Barracks is a big place. Always been there for 100 years, and that's where we had to go to Jefferson Barracks.
And then that's when we got to go to Florida for
So
R&R for
they were
2 weeks. Then he went to Midland. Then it ended, thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God. So,
Yeah, it was kind of funny when I went to Jefferson Barracks. I told the guy, "Well, I want to go to California. I don't want to go to Iowa. That's where I listen."
Yeah.
No, you're going to Iowa. That's right. That's where you went into service from. So you got to go back to
Go
Iowa.
back.
But I had planned on at that time going right back to California, but even though I was still in the service, I got 30 days off, but you couldn't get gas or anything, and the gas ration was still on.
Yeah.
I had a friend that owned a gas station, and he was giving me gas tickets so I could buy gas.
you need another drink, don't you?
I still got a little bit left.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dehydrated.
Now, if we could just briefly kind of tell me about post-war, coming back home after you were out of the reserves and everything. What what'd you do for work? What was your,
There wasn't much work to be had.
There wasn't, no, there really was, especially in Iowa, there wasn't much work. In the bigger areas, the defense work was all shutting down, so they had put people to work. So really it was kind of a tough time then. I got unemployment for a little while, didn't I?
Little while.
$52 a month or a week, something like that. But that was just good for 5 weeks, something like that. So
We bought a little farm.
I bought this damn farm. I didn't know nothing about farming, but I was so anxious to settle down and have a home, And happiest time of our lives, I think.
Yeah.
It didn't have electricity, no water in the house, an outhouse.
So we started remodeling.
But I always liked that kind of work, carpenter work and fixing things. So we had a great time fixing the place up. I bought an old light plant and
Elko.
put it out in the garage out there, and that was a lot better than the kerosene lamps and stuff that we had. fact, I think Kathy used to have a mark on her face right here where I was lighting one of the lamps on, and the end of the match popped off and stuck
Oh, jeez.
right there. Had a little bird place, but I think it's kind of
Got in a ring.
done away. I mean, the time has taken care of it. But
And then he luckily got the rural mail route.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where his career for 30 years went.
Had
About
to have
10 in
it.
Iowa and about 20 Malibu and out here.
And that's what brought you out to California? Was
Well, I wanted to come
transferred.
back anyway. I didn't like cold weather. I knew you didn't have freezer. I saw it back there. Sure.
yeah.
So
But
he,
my mother, since she was a widow and had lost my brother, I about had to stay there for a few years. But when she passed away with him, boy, we headed out, didn't we? Shortly thereafter.
kids all graduated from Samoa,
I had two daughters and a son?
2 daughters.
Yeah.
We lost our older daughter to
Yeah.
cancer.
Our kids took
breast
the
cancer.
adjustment pretty good from a small school to a big one. Phil took it pretty hard at first. Kathy took it awful hard, but I think Phil took it harder adjusting than.
It wasn't hard, was it, Phil?
Well, I didn't think so. I mean,
Kathy had it harder.
Kathy had a hard time.
Yes. So it's been quite a ride, as they say.
Yeah. Well, in conclusion, last thing I'd like to know is if you have any advice for my generation, future generations, any wisdom
Stay out
that
of
you
war.
can, any wisdom you can
Yeah.
bestow on us.
I don't know. I hope they get this warring system out of their minds. I don't know. I think they ever will. You know.
Yeah.
Eisenhower warned us about the industrial complex and the military complex joining up, and I think that's happening a lot. You know, after all, wars make a lot of money for a lot of corporations, and a lot of money. And then the poor peons, they have to pay the bills.
And send their young boys off to war.
So I don't know what we're doing in some of the places we're in now. You know, we can't change anything in Afghanistan. We're going to change anything there. And
Oh, Donald will.
every place we went, we made them rich. Look at
Donald can.
Vietnam. You know, they're better off financially than we are. I've been reading a book on this young guy that married a young Vietnamese in this country. Of course, she's well educated here, so they went back to Saigon to see the changes in those 20 years. And of course, they couldn't hardly believe what's happened. You know,
Yeah.
she still has some family. I've just recently been reading that in one of the magazines.
We can't stop progress in
No,
lots of
and look
places,
at-
but we don't have to have
at
wars to
North
stop
Vietnam.
it.
Yeah.
North Korea, there's more human rights being abused in North Korea than any place. It's terrible what's going on there. That's one thing we did wrong, but maybe it was stopping MacArthur when they did. You know, he wanted to go in, had marched clear up to the China border, and Truman was afraid of what him, so he flew out there and fired him. You know. But I don't think we should have invaded China. There's no way we could win anything there. They were so outnumbered in people, you know, and people are very cheap commodity in China. You know.
Sure.
This guy in North Korea now, that's what's going to happen there if you pay any attention to that. He's crazy.
Yeah, there's no good news comes out of there.
You know.
And somehow he seems to be getting money, and technology to do what he's doing. He's got missiles that claim to reach his country.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised he has, you know.
Yeah.
And Syria, that is
That
a
is crazy.
sad,
He's
sad place.
Power mad, he don't know it. You know, any more about what he's doing, the man in the moon, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I appreciate you
Do you feel,
sharing everything. with me.
glad to.
do you
You're
feel
probably
like
tired of it.
you've got enough there? Enough to make
Hope I haven't bored you too much.
Not at all.